25% of women answer that they don't know the answer to a technical question. But when we ask them again, they actually almost all the times got it right. So this really shows that it's not a matter of ability, it's not a matter of lack of knowledge, it's more a matter of confidence.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined by my colleagues Laura, Josefina, and Emily, and they're going to share some of their insights and their best tips and tricks with you all today. Josefina, to kick us off, could you just level set what is the gender investing gap?
Yeah, so when we talk about the gender investment gap, it's basically the differences between how women and men invest. We all know this, but women tend to start later. They usually invest less. They take less risk. And this might sound like a small difference, but over time, this compounds over the decades. And this small difference end up being like a big gap when it comes to wealth, when it comes to pension savings. And just to be clear, this is not a matter of ability. The fact that women invest less or they start later, that's not because they know less. It's more a matter of opportunities, a matter of confidence, a matter of everything that with all the messages we have received while growing up that has shaped this behavior rather than knowledge and ability in itself.
I'm glad you said that because in the first part of this series, we talked about breaking down some of those barriers, and exactly what you're saying, those are the barriers, the very real barriers I think we face on a day-to-day. Laura, I'd love to bring you in. What's your take kind of on the topic?
So I think the point that really resonates with me, what you were just saying, was around ability. I think investing for so long, people have believed it's something that you have to sit in a dark room on your own, that you need to know all the rules and you need to be able to do it properly. But the reality today is that isn't the case. There's so many different options for people to take. And actually, what's more important is about, as you said, taking that first step, making sure what you're doing is aligned to where you want to be in the future and focusing on that as the outcome. And essentially, those small steps, everything will come.
This is about progress over perfection, and it's just taking that first step. It's the hardest part, but the most important. Emily, what do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the impact that it can have. So I think it's sad sometimes thinking about it, and it is that the small steps that can help, because I think what we see at the minute is women either not investing or not taking enough risk with investing, and what that means is lower portfolios, lower pension pots. And I think when we compare that to men, we live longer. Women typically live longer, and they need that money to go even further. So it's really important that it's something that we start to look at how we do tackle.
And this actually really resonates with some research that we did about the identity gap. So what we did was to survey around 700 of our UK retail clients, which by definition are investors because they already have a Vanguard account. And it's super surprising to see that 25% of men that we surveyed, they said that they didn't identify themselves as investors, and that went up to 40% for women. So we're saying that of people that already are investors, 40% of women don't identify themselves as investors, and for men that figure is only 25%. And that identity gap actually shapes a lot of the behavior for the future. So that's also something really important when it comes to this gender investment gap.
That is a key stat. I'm curious why. Why is that exists, that kind of disparity between men and women when it comes to these true investors maybe not thinking they are?
Yeah, this links back to what Laura was saying before about ability and confidence, because usually women tend to say that they don't see themselves as investors because they don't know enough. But when we do like a financial literacy test, actually men and women roughly score the same. So it's not a matter of ability that is driving that gap. And something that I think is really interesting as well is that when we do this quiz, like the first time that we run the questions, 25% of women answer that they don't know the answer to a technical question. But when we ask them again, they actually almost all the times got it right. So this really shows that it's not a matter of ability, it's not a matter of lack of knowledge, it's more a matter of confidence.
Yeah, that's really insightful. That data, we've tried to present different stats like this throughout the series. I think that really shines a light on some of the things that we still see within the financial world. Laura, I would love to bring you in. What impact would closing the gender gap have on society?
It's a great question. So Something we hear a lot is that people understand that investing really matters, but essentially they just don't know where to start. And if you think about life today, especially with many women, life can be very busy, very full, and essentially as much as we try, life just happens. So whether you are deciding to have a baby, whether you're taking a career break, whether that's planned or unplanned, or potentially having to look after, say, an elderly relative. I think one of the things that investing is so important for is it gives you that cushion, which gives you those options. So at a time where it may be quite stressful and you have a lot to deal with, actually having that kind of safety net to feel that you can fall back on is really important. If we then kind of zoom that out a bit and think about what impact does that have more broadly, women putting more money into investing means more money going into the economy. It means less pressure on welfare services. It means more market stability, and the impact of all of those things doesn't just think about the individual, but it benefits communities and eventually will actually impact through generations through that family as well as they pass on that wealth.
Exactly. Really positive impacts that can come from just the simple first steps to taking that leap into investing. Emily, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that even just that modest shift, £100 a month, all it takes, just little and often, being consistent, can help provide that safety net. And I just think it's so important to just, as Laura said, sort of just get started. And the impact that it can have on yourself and the wider economy is staggering.
Josefina, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say that sometimes starting is even easier than people think. Women tend to think that you need to have thousands of pounds, or you need to pick the perfect timing, or you need to be an expert on financial markets to be an investor. And that's really not true. You can start very small, as Emily was saying, 50, £100 a month. And that can really make a difference. Of course, this money is not going to grow overnight, but it's going to be growing quietly in the background. And I think something that's super important is that maybe at some point you go into your account, your money has grown, and you click and you're like, oh my God, I am an investor after all. And that small mindset shift can really make a difference when it comes to your investment journey.
It is a mindset shift, and it starts with those small steps. The most important thing, just starting, and that will grow over time. Emily, let's pivot just a bit and think about women's financial independence. How is investing contributing to that independence that we can see women grab for themselves?
Yeah, so I think historically, thinking back now, for women, they've typically not always been involved in the finances until it's been a sort of catalyst or life event that's really brought it about. So I'd say, going through a divorce or widowhood or something like that, where it then sort of brings about, oh, okay, this is actually the financial situation and this is what needs to happen. Whereas I think where we are today, we're actually the first generation where we are earning and managing our own money without sort of maybe having to rely on a male counterpart for that. So I feel like we've got a really great opportunity here to start looking at, how do we really empower more women to look at that sort of financial independence and not be scared by it. You don't need a lot. You don't need to be the most confident person. You don't need to have lots of expertise or time, as some of the others have said. And I think that rings really true for me and my experience. My family were never investors. My mum, my dad had never invested before. And it was just me falling into the industry and again, starting really small. I saw that money accumulate over time, much more than it would have done in a sort of cash ISA or savings account at that point. And what that meant for me is it's given me much more financial independence. I've been able to get on the property ladder sooner than I thought. But I've actually been that catalyst of change for my family. So now my mum, my dad and my brother, they're all now investing. So it's nice the shift that you can see happening now.
I love your story, and that to me is just the definition of empowering. It's very empowering to be able to feel that way. My story is just like yours. So my parents were not investors. I helped them open up their very first Vanguard accounts, and it makes all the difference to start whenever you can. And when you have that knowledge and information for yourself, you can share that by helping others. Laura, maybe would love your thoughts too on just the impact that we can have as we spread this a bit further beyond ourselves.
Sure, and I love those stories as well. Like knowing that you can have the impact on your parents and kind of give that back. That's really great. And from my perspective, I guess maybe slightly different stage of life. And for me, it's about it just creating independence for me in the background. So, with, as I said, kids, busyness, craziness, everybody wanting a bit of your attention. Really, the independence that it gives me is that I just don't need to micromanage that. I think I wouldn't have the brain space to do that on a day-to-day basis. So having options that means, such as our managed services offer, which means that I can kind of set and forget and just know that that's quietly working for me in the background, and it isn't something that I need to really focus my time and effort on every single day.
Exactly. There's so many options for people that don't exactly know where to start, that managed service offer being a great example. Josefina, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me personally, I mean, investing is what allowed me to be here today, to move to London, to pay for my studies, for my master's degree here in London. And for me, it was not only about being able to finance something that was important for my growth, my career, my future. It's also about the fact that I could make a decision entirely on my own. And I think that's what investment gives you. It gives you options, gives you freedom, it gives you independence, which is super important.
I was going to say it gives you independence, and you hit it off, because I think that is truly, what it provides for so many individuals, but also women, which is very empowering, to go back to that phrase. Emily, let's pivot just a bit and think about, there's been an evolution over time in how accessible investing can be. That means it's a little bit different today than perhaps women in the past. What does that mean for women of today?
It's exciting. I think typically, if we think back, investing previously was all around DIY, stock pickers, watching the market, having to be, really embedded in. Whereas things have, we've seen a real shift, definitely a lot more more recently over the last 10 years, where things are just more accessible. Some of those barriers still exist around confidence and time, but really, how do we start to break down those barriers and make it much easier for people to, as Laura mentioned earlier, just get started? And I think that's where at Vanguard we've created our managed service offers. Our managed stocks and shares ISA is a really great example, where we see roughly 75% of the people joining that offer are brand new to investing, have never invested before, but again, we're taking that first step. And, it's really, really simple. You can start with really small amounts. You just come, we ask you a few questions, we try and understand a little bit more about you and what type of investor you might be. And then you just hand over the keys and we'll do it for you. So you can really just take that time back for, life's just moments, moments with family, moments with friends, holidays, whatever you can do, knowing that, as Josefina said earlier, it's building there quietly in the background. So I think it's really exciting times.
Yeah, I think being busy no longer precludes you from being able to be a fantastic investor at the same time. That's powerful. That's a great thing for women today. Laura, any thoughts on kind of that evolution and what it means for women today?
I think the fact that it provides options is what really sticks out for me. And, we all hear so much in the media today about cost of living, pension gap, and that can create quite a lot of fear. But actually, I think for me, to kind of coin Emily's phrase, I think the empowerment that gives women, that you have the option to go and take that first step and do something about it. So, yeah, I think I would completely agree with Emily. It's great that we've got options to take now.
Exactly, and it gives you a bit more control for your future. Josefina, anything you would add?
Yeah, I would echo Laura and Emily's words as well. But I think that the main difference from, if you compare today's world with a few years back, is that now it feels like a lot of the heavy lifting is done for you. I mean, as Emily was saying earlier, before it felt like you need to pick the stocks or watch the market or try to decide what's the perfect moment for me to join. Now it's not like that. Like, you have products in place, you have policies in place that make this whole journey way easier. And all the barriers that maybe a few years back women felt that they had to overcome by themselves, now they are part of a system that is helping them, that is trying to provide them with as many tools and solutions as they can to make this journey as easier as possible. And yeah, just one more thing that actually really resonates with one of the models that we have here at Vanguard that we call the Pathways to Investing model, that actually centers in 3 P's. So you have the person, the product, and the policy. The person basically refers to your habits, your routine, and that's something that is super difficult to change. It's your culture as well. Then you have the products. We've made a lot of progress in this regard in the last few years. Now we have a lot of simple, low-cost, diversified products that are working on the background, are taking care of the complexity. We have here Life Strategy as an example, or the managed services solutions as well. And then you have the policy. Just to put some examples out there, automatic pension contributions, workplace defaults as well. And these are super helpful, especially when life gets really busy, when you're changing jobs, for instance. These default systems that are part of the policy really help in the investing journey. So I will really highlight these 3 things: the person, product, and policy.
That's great. And I love, the different responses and answers. And this is a very positive thing for women of our generation to have all of this optionality at their fingertips. Josefina, we just talked about the evolution that we've seen perhaps over the last 5 years or decade. How do we ensure that women feel supported throughout this journey?
Yeah. So I think it goes above and beyond just the mechanics of investing. It's not only about products, it's not only about policy, but it's also about feeling that you belong to this world. So the more we see women investing, women talking about money, women making decisions with confidence, the more like you feel like, okay, I belong to this world. I am an investor, and I belong to this investor world, and that will make your life easier when it comes to investing, the moment that you realize that you are part of this system as well.
I think you mentioned it before, but it's a mindset shift. And I think that's exactly how we should think about framing it, because women have all the tools they need to make this happen. It's just changing the mindset. Laura, what do you think? What are your reflections on that?
So I think what I would say, if I think about how I feel supported in that way, I think for me it's about just taking some of the pressure off. Go back to the points from earlier, kind of busy lives. We're all very busy and all got a lot to contend with, but actually knowing that you are building that security, that future, knowing that you're going to be able to look after yourself, be financially independent, especially kind of more towards your older age, which is a bit of unknown for all of us. I think for me that's what's really important.
Emily, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually love what you said around criteria. I think that really resonated with me, because I think there is a lot of stigma that you have to be super knowledgeable about investing, and there's this criteria to be an investor. But I think that for me is where we can provide more support by making it easier for people to get started. So starting with really small amounts, getting rid of all the investment jargon, just to make it super easy for people to understand that, you don't need all of that, and you can get started. So I think just providing that education and support, and that's going to be the thing that can help, provide that safety net for whenever life, really, really requires that.
You have all provided a lot of practical advice, great tips today. So maybe the last question I have for you today, Josefina, will start with you. If you had to speak to our viewers, our listeners, one thing you want them to take away from today, what would it be?
I think, as I was saying at the beginning, the fact that women start later or they invest less, it's not a matter of ability, it's not a matter of knowledge, it's just a matter of confidence. And women tend to have super clear goals, to be disciplined, to be patient. So actually, it's just realizing that those strengths that we already have is all it takes to become a good investor. So you already have what it takes, which is super important for you to know. It's just a matter of confidence and taking that first step.
We have all the tools to be the very best of investors. It's just about that mindset to think of ourselves as those lovely investors. Laura, what about you? What are your thoughts?
For me, it doesn't need to be perfect. Essentially, there will never be a right time. It's just all about how do you take that first step to get started. Once you have, be consistent. The small steps will add up over time and build that real financial stability and confidence for the future.
There will never be that right time. That, I think, is extremely real, very fair, and so true. Emily, maybe flipping over to you. What about you? What would you leave the viewers with today?
I would say very much on the same lines as Laura, of just getting started. I think it can pay off so much in the long run if you just get started now. There's no exact timing that's going to work best. And I think thinking of it something similar to training for an event such as a marathon, if you're consistent and you start early, you build up that strength over time. It's the exact same for investing. Starting early, small amounts, and again, over time, you're going to be in a much better financial position for whatever your future may bring.
It's building up that muscle. Investing, just like anything else, is a muscle that we can train, to your point, and we can start doing that today. I want to thank you for all the great answers and responses today. Really appreciate getting to sit with you. And thank you all for watching and listening. If you missed part 1 or part 2, please go ahead and give that a look. This was the final series in part 3. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and share with your friends and empower other women in their financial journeys.